So following UFC 240, Cris Cyborg decided that she wanted to start an all-out PR war with the UFC. And it looked like it was pretty clear from that she most likely was not going to re-sign with the UFC. The only way that she would be just to get a fight with Amanda Nunes and then find a way out of her contract after that. But in this PR war, and this is something I covered in a video that I'm going to point out as well, Cyborg was going on the offense talking about how the UFC was supposedly sexually harassing her, how she was being bullied, how she was being mistreated, how she was owed an apology before she even thinks about re-signing. And there were a lot of other details along with that. And in that effort, she just went everywhere she possibly could. And I think she had a team of people helping her out as well. Just whether it was on Twitter replying to a bunch of comments, whether it was on YouTube replying to a bunch of videos, which I'll bring up an example of that as well. She was going everywhere she could to try to draw as much press as possible to get this whole idea going of the UFC being bullies to her and mistreating her. And after all this, you were wondering how the UFC was going to handle it, if they were just going to cut her loose or if they were going to just kind of make her stick out the whole 3-month waiting period. And it looks like they decided to go on the offense and cut her loose. So here is a clip from the interview that Dana White just put out. Now, it's worth mentioning this video was put out on the UFC's channel. It was done by Laura Sanko, who is a UFC employee. It's very clear that the point of this interview is not, let's just happen to talk about some random things. Cyborg's a big deal. This interview was primarily done to address the Cyborg situation. They brought up a couple of little details at the end, too, to make it seem like that wasn't the case, but that definitely was the case.
Bullshit that she's putting out there. Again, to avoid fighting Amanda Nunes. Message received, I get it. I'm going to release her from her contract. I will not match any offers. She is free and clear to go to Bellator or any of these other organizations and fight these easy fights that she wants. Done. Done deal. I will literally today have my lawyer draft a letter to her team that she is free and clear to go wherever she wants. We're out of the Cyborg business.
Do you feel like all of this came to a head in the last couple of days strictly because of contract and some sort of negotiation strategy on her camp's part?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but bad strategy.
Yeah.
I don't hate Cyborg, and I'm not trying to, destroy Cyborg. All this craziness that she's talking. You know how many fighters I've dealt with over the years, people that I really...
Yeah, and he goes on from there, but the point being made there, obviously, was that he's tired of dealing with Cyborg and the issues right there. He also mentioned at the start of this interview that there was some sort of outside the lines piece. So I'm assuming one of the ESPN programs, there's a program called Outside the Lines, picked up on what Cyborg was talking about and did a piece talking about how the UFC didn't properly treat her. So he just didn't like the PR. He didn't like that. Not only was he getting bad PR, but he was getting bad PR from ESPN, who is his key business partner in the U.S. So that was enough for him to say, hey, look, this isn't a good relationship anyway. Let's just cut it loose now and end it and make it so that she has to move on from here. Now, when I was talking about how she was getting involved in this PR war earlier and talking about how there were a lot of replies to comments and replies to even YouTube videos, the initial YouTube video I did on this situation is actually right here. Wasn't actually that big of a video for me. At this point, it's only got about 19 views, so really not that heavily viewed. But even though there were only 20 people who viewed this video, her channel, at least her verified channel, as you can see right here, decided to post some responses to it and actually engage with me a little bit. So here's what we talked about then. So she had one where she just mentioned that Charmaine tweet was her first Zuffa fight. And there was a point I made in the video where I said that the two instances she was talking about most were, one of them was the instance where Dana White said that she looked like Vanderlei in a dress, and the other instance was with Joe Rogan saying that she would have to cut weight by cutting her dick off. My point was that both of these things happened before her first UFC fight. Her point was that, yes, it was before the first UFC fight, but she was under Zuffa contract when the Rogan thing happened. So I just asked her, okay. So she also said, I was signed to Zuffa when Rogan made those comments. Those comments were made on a podcast following the UFC with the president and the commentator. So then I asked, okay, for further clarification, so I have the correct facts. One, did you re-sign or sign an extension with Zuffa between the podcast, which was 11/16/2015, and your contract ending last weekend? There was a report that you demanded an apology from Rogan afterward and got it. Is this true? If yes, why are you bringing it up again? Number 3, the Vanderlei Silva comments were at a presser tied to a UFC event that took place on 4/26/14. The tweet fight happened 10 months later at 2/27/15. Did you ask for or receive an apology prior to signing back then? If not, why now? And that question was asked because she was saying that she needs an apology for that comment before re-signing now again in 2019. So the idea would be, if she didn't ask for it back then in 2015, why did she need it now? And then point number 4 was, has there been any additional abuse that occurred while you were under contract, separate from the 2 examples in the video that she posted? So she did respond to it, but she didn't respond to all of those. So she said, I have been a champion, researched the UFC champion clause. This has been the first time I've been a free agent since Rogan's comments were made. So that answers question 1. So at least she was under contract for the second comments, but even still, it doesn't answer question 2 of whether or not Joe Rogan ever did apologize to her. So they put up a blog post where it was just a general, sounds like something that was written by a PR firm where it's like, oh, it's great to, or leadership comes from the top, but here at the UFC, the leadership from the top is not very good. It brings upon a bullying culture and so on. So then I said, okay, that answer is number one. The blog calls back to 2 examples from your video, but doesn't cite anything other than that. I saw that Angela McGanna was tagged in the post, so I'm assuming that you wanted her to be disciplined for how she was interacting with you. How about questions 2 through 4? And I never got a response to that. So the point being there, Cyborg very aggressive in her efforts to put down the UFC. It didn't look like she wanted to re-sign. It looks like everyone's kind of getting what they want here. Cyborg is now free to sign with whoever she wants now and doesn't have to wait for the 3-month period. The UFC can wipe their hands clean of her and not have to deal with her anymore. They really weren't doing a great job of building a featherweight division. So at this point, you can just kind of keep it around and let Nunes pop up and down every so often when she wants to fight. Or they can just cut it loose and say, okay, we're going back to 115, 125, and 135. So that'll be up to them to decide. But in a way, it's good that this is over. But it almost feels like even though that part's over, there's still more to come. So one of the things that came up on Twitter, there's a video that Cyborg posted where they were showing her talking to Dana White after the fights. And one of her camera people, or I guess one of the production people, put in a caption of what Dana White was saying, and it didn't say what Dana White was saying. It was actually misquoting him. So she had to post an apology for that. So it says, "Hey guys, I know that many people saw the video of my confrontation with Dana White after UFC 240 that was posted to my official YouTube channel, Twitter account, and Instagram account. I want to let everyone know that the video was edited by my production team to make it appear as though Dana told me. And listen, whenever you hear me saying stuff, I'm not saying the truth. Dana did not say that to me, and the subtitles in the video were incorrect. As you can see from the unedited video, Dana actually said, and listen, whenever you hear me saying stuff, I'm not saying negative things about you. Dana and I have had many disagreements during my career in the UFC, and I've been adamant about standing up for myself in situations where I feel my character and statements have been misrepresented and used against me, but I also take pride in being an honest person and a true professional. I take full responsibility for the actions that resulted in the edited video being posted on my social media accounts. We were wrong, and I've addressed this issue with my production team so that it never happens again in the future. Finally, I want to apologize for Dana White for posting the video. Even though we will continue to disagree about numerous issues, I will always stand up for what is right." So a couple things about that. One of them is whether or not this apology was coerced out of her by the UFC lawyers. I don't know. It is the right thing to apologize if the wrong thing was done here, and obviously the wrong thing was done, whether it was her fault or the team's fault. Also seems like a fairly well-written statement. I don't know that Cris Cyborg, who speaks English as their second language, was able to put that together on her own, or if that was done with the help of some legal counsel. But regardless, I don't know. That's really all that important. It's the right thing for her to do, to at least say, look, I was wrong, and I want to make sure I own up to it. So at least on that end, it looks like if there was any issue from the UFC where they were going to take legal action, that should be taken care of now. I don't know that Cyborg is planning on taking any legal action against them. So I think at this point, it's probably going to be a fairly clean split, although you'd have to think that whenever she does sign with anyone, whether that's with Bellator and Scott Coker or sign somewhere else, there's probably going to be a bunch of interviews. Okay, well, hey, now you're with Bellator. You're going to fight Julia Budd now. Tell us what you think. How have these last few months been? And in those interviews, there's probably going to be some more stuff brought up where she's going to take some digs at the UFC again. But at least a lot of the major stuff, it seems to be over now. I don't know that Cyborg's going to keep going on the attack now that she's not under a UFC contract anymore, at least not under that matching period. So hopefully this means that's the end of it. A bit of an ugly situation. You kind of wish it would have gone better, but there's only so much you can do.